The first 5 minutes of your day determine the next 16 hours, not what happens to you, what you ask yourself. Because most people don't ask anything, they just react. The alarm screams, they hit snooze, they check their phone, scroll through chaos, let other people's emergencies become their morning. And just like that, before they've even stood up, they've handed their day to someone else, to the algorithm, to their anxiety, to whatever pulls the loudest. But you're different, or at least you want to be. You know that the morning isn't just time before work. It's the foundation. It's the moment when you decide who's running your life today, your impulses or your intentions, your fears or your focus, the noise outside or the voice within. And the difference between those two paths? It's not motivation. It's not willpower. It's 5 questions. 5 simple, brutal, clarifying questions that force you to wake up, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually. The Stoics understood mornings. Marcus Aurelius didn't jump out of bed excited to rule an empire. He was human, tired, tempted to stay under the covers, but he asked himself what he was made for. He reminded himself of his purpose. He prepared his mind before the world could assault it. And that practice, that morning ritual of self-examination, is what kept him sane through wars, plagues, betrayals, and the weight of leading millions. Not because his circumstances were easy, but because his mind was ready. What you're about to hear aren't conversation starters. They're not journaling prompts for people who have nothing better to do. These are the 5 questions that will strip away the fog, cut through the excuses, and leave you standing face to face with the truth of who you are and what you're building. Some mornings the answers will empower you. Other mornings they'll expose you. And that's exactly the point, because you can't fix what you won't face. You can't grow in areas you refuse to examine. And you can't lead your day if you don't first lead yourself. So before you check your phone, before you scroll, before you let the world tell you what to think about, ask yourself these 5 questions, not once, every single morning, until they become automatic, until your day doesn't start without them, because the man who masters his morning masters his life. And it begins right here. Question 1. Who am I choosing to be today? Most people wake up and just become whoever they were yesterday. Same habits, same reactions, same version of themselves they've been playing on autopilot for years. They don't choose, they just repeat. And then they wonder why nothing changes, why they feel stuck, why their growth flatlined. It's because they never asked the most fundamental question of all. Who am I choosing to be today? Not who you were, not who people expect, who you're choosing, right now, in this moment, because identity isn't fixed. It's not something you're born with and stuck with forever. It's something you build, something you practice, something you become through the decisions you make when no one's watching. And every morning, you get to decide. Am I showing up as the disciplined version of myself or the lazy one? The patient version or the reactive one? The man who keeps his word or the one who makes excuses? This question forces you to separate your past from your present. Yes, you messed up yesterday. Yes, you've been inconsistent. Yes, you've let yourself down before, but that was then. This is now, and right now you have a choice. You can carry yesterday's identity into today, or you can leave it behind and step into the person you're working to become. That shift, that conscious decision, changes everything. Because when you choose your identity, instead of inheriting it, you stop being a victim of your patterns. You become the author. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's the sequence. Identity first, action second. You don't become disciplined by accident. You become disciplined by deciding that's who you are and then proving it with what you do next. You don't become calm by hoping for it. You become calm by declaring it and then breathing through the chaos instead of feeding it. So every morning before your feet hit the floor, ask yourself, who am I choosing to be today? And be specific, not some vague idea of better. Name it. Today, I'm the man who trains even when he's tired. Today, I'm the man who listens before he speaks. Today, I'm the man who stays present with his family instead of disappearing into his phone. When you name it, you claim it. And when you claim it, you have a standard to measure yourself against when the day tries to pull you off course. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Because the version of you that drifts is not the same as the version that decides. And the world treats those two versions very differently. One gets respect, one gets overlooked, one builds something, one just survives. You choose which one shows up every single morning, so choose wisely. Question 2. What's my one non-negotiable today? Your to-do list is lying to you. It tells you everything matters equally. It tells you that if you just work faster, hustle harder, squeeze more in, you'll get it all done. But you won't. You never do. Because life doesn't work that way. There will always be more tasks than time, more demands than energy, more noise than clarity. And if you try to do everything, you'll finish nothing that actually matters. That's why this question is brutal. It forces you to pick one thing, not 10. One. The one thing that, if you did nothing else today, would make today a win. The one thing that aligns with who you're becoming. The one thing that moves the needle on what you're building. And everything else? It's secondary. It's optional. It's negotiable. But this one thing, non-negotiable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That's not morbid. That's clarity. Because when you remember that your time is finite, that today might be your last, you stop treating everything like it's equally important. You stop saying yes to things that don't matter. You stop wasting your best energy on other people's emergencies. You protect the one thing, and you do it first. Most people fail here because they don't want to choose. They want to believe they can have it all, do it all, be it all. But that's a fantasy, and it leads to mediocrity. Because when everything is a priority, nothing is. You spread yourself so thin that you do everything poorly instead of doing one thing excellently. And at the end of the day, you're exhausted but empty, busy but not fulfilled, because you never anchored to the thing that actually mattered. So what's your one non-negotiable today? Maybe it's training. Maybe it's finishing that project you've been avoiding. Maybe it's having a real conversation with someone you've been neglecting. Maybe it's sitting in silence for 10 minutes to clear your head before the chaos starts. Whatever it is, name it. Write it down and protect it like your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. Your future self is built from the accumulation of non-negotiables you either honored or abandoned. This question also teaches you to let go, to accept that some things won't get done, that some people will be disappointed, that your inbox will never be empty. And that's okay, because you're not here to please everyone. You're here to build a life that means something, and that requires sacrifice. It requires saying no to good things so you can say yes to great things. It requires disappointing people who don't understand your vision, and it requires the courage to choose one thing over everything else. When you ask this question every morning, you train yourself to think like a Stoic, to focus on what's essential and release what's not, to stop confusing motion with progress, to measure your days not by how much you did, but by whether you did what mattered. That's the shift. And it starts with one question. What's my one non-negotiable today? Answer it, honor it, and watch how much more powerful your days become when you stop trying to do everything and start committing to the one thing. Question 3. What's actually in my control today? You're going to waste energy today. The only question is how much. Because the moment you try to control things that aren't yours to control, you're bleeding power. You're stressing over outcomes you can't dictate. You're obsessing over people you can't change. You're spiraling over events you can't predict. And by the end of the day, you're exhausted, not from doing hard things, but from fighting battles you were never meant to fight? This question cuts through that. It forces you to draw the line. On one side, everything you control. On the other side, everything you don't. And the Stoics were ruthless about this distinction. You control your effort, your attitude, your response, your preparation, your integrity. That's it. Everything else, literally everything else, is outside your circle. Other people's opinions, the weather, the market, your genetics, what happened yesterday, what might happen tomorrow, whether you get chosen, whether you get credit, whether life is fair. Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. That sentence should be tattooed on your brain because it's the key to peace, the key to power, the key to sanity in a world that constantly tries to convince you that you're responsible for things you're not. You're not responsible for making people like you. You're responsible for being someone worth liking. You're not responsible for controlling outcomes. You're responsible for controlling inputs. When you ask this question every morning, you're creating a filter, a way to sort the real from the noise. So when something triggers you later in the day, you can pause and ask, do I control this? If the answer is yes, you act, you adjust, you fix it. But if the answer is no, you let it go. Not because you don't care, but because caring about things you can't control is just another form of suffering. And you don't have time for that. You're building something, and that requires all your energy focused on what you can actually change. Think about how much lighter your day becomes when you release what's not yours. Someone cuts you off in traffic? Not yours. They control their behavior. You control your reaction. Your boss doesn't recognize your work? Not yours. They control their perception. You control the quality of what you produce. You apply for something and don't get it? Not yours. They control the decision. You control the effort and the attempt. When you stop trying to manage the universe and start managing yourself, you become free. Free from the anxiety of needing everything to go your way. Free from the resentment when it doesn't. This question also protects your energy, because energy is finite, and every minute you spend trying to control the uncontrollable is a minute stolen from the things that actually move your life forward. So you wake up and you ask, what's in my control today? My morning routine, my training, my focus during work, the way I speak to people, the way I handle frustration, the quality of my presence. That's the list. And when you focus there, when you pour all your energy into what you can actually influence, you stop feeling powerless. You stop feeling like life is happening to you because you're finally happening to life. And here's the gift. When you master what's in your control, the things outside your control start to matter less. Not because they disappear, but because you're no longer dependent on them for your peace. You've built something internal, something solid, something that doesn't require perfect conditions to thrive. That's the real freedom the Stoics were talking about. Not freedom from hardship, freedom from needing hardship to stop before you can be okay. You're okay now because you know what's yours, and you've stopped reaching for what isn't. Question 4. What am I grateful for right now? You're going to complain today. It's almost guaranteed. Something won't go your way. Someone will annoy you. Something you expected won't happen. And in that moment, you'll have a choice. You can focus on what's missing, or you can remember what's here. You can spiral into lack, or you can anchor into gratitude. And the difference between those two responses isn't just emotional, it's existential. Because the lens you choose shapes the life you live. This question rewires your brain. It forces you to see what you've been ignoring. The fact that you woke up, that you can see, hear, move, that you have clean water, a roof, food, that there are people in your life who would miss you if you were gone, that you live in a time of abundance most of human history couldn't even imagine. And yes, you have problems, real problems, but you also have gifts. And when you start the day acknowledging those gifts, when you feel them, instead of just listing them, something shifts. The problems don't disappear, but they shrink. They lose their grip. because you remember that even in the struggle, you're standing on a foundation that most people would kill for. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." That enjoyment doesn't come from having more. It comes from appreciating what is. And appreciation is a practice, a muscle, something you build by asking this question every single morning until it becomes second nature, until your default isn't what's wrong, but what's right, until you stop waiting for everything to be perfect before you allow yourself to feel grateful. Gratitude also protects you from entitlement, from that toxic mindset that says you deserve more, that life owes you, that you're being cheated somehow. Entitlement makes you weak. It makes you bitter. It makes you a victim. But gratitude makes you powerful, because when you appreciate what you have, you stop needing more to be happy. You stop comparing. You stop resenting. You start building from a place of abundance instead of scarcity. And people feel that. They feel the difference between someone who's thankful and someone who's just taking. This doesn't mean you stop wanting more. It doesn't mean you stop striving. It means you stop suffering while you strive. You stop postponing peace until you achieve the next thing. You find peace now in the process, in the journey, in the fact that you're still here, still trying, still becoming. That's the balance. You can be grateful for where you are and still committed to where you're going. Those aren't opposites. They're partners. So every morning, ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now? And don't rush it. Don't just rattle off 3 things like you're checking a box. Feel it. Think about the people who won't wake up today, the people who lost what you still have, the version of you from 5 years ago who would be amazed by where you are now. Let that sink in. Let it ground you. Let it remind you that even on your worst day, you have more than enough. And when you start from that place, from gratitude instead of grievance, your entire day changes. You become harder to shake, harder to defeat, because you've already won just by being here. Question 5. How will I respond when things don't go my plan? They won't. Go according to plan, that is. Something will break. Someone will disappoint you. Traffic will be worse than expected. A conversation will go sideways. A project will hit a wall. And in that moment, the moment when reality doesn't match your expectations, everything you've built in the first 4 questions will be tested. Because it's easy to be calm when life is smooth. It's easy to be disciplined when everything's going your way. But the real test, that comes when things fall apart. And they will. This question is about preparation, mental rehearsal. It's the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, negative visualization, imagining what could go wrong before it does. Not to be paranoid, but to be ready. So that when the obstacle hits, you don't crumble, you don't spiral, you don't lose the morning you built, because you've already seen it coming. You've already walked through it mentally, and you've already decided who you'll be when it arrives. Marcus Aurelius used to remind himself every morning, when you wake up, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Not because he hated people, but because he wanted to be prepared. He didn't want to be shocked when someone acted badly. He didn't want to waste energy being offended. He wanted to walk into the day with his eyes open, expecting difficulty, ready for it. And when it came, he wasn't thrown off. He responded with calm, with clarity, with the composure of a man who saw it coming. That's the power of this question. It removes surprise. It removes the victim mentality. It puts you back in control, because when you expect smooth and get chaos, you feel betrayed. But when you expect chaos and get smooth, you feel grateful. And when you expect chaos and get chaos, you're ready. You adapt. You adjust. You move. You don't collapse. You don't complain. You execute. So every morning, ask yourself, how will I respond when things don't go my way? Will I lose my temper? Will I blame someone? Will I quit? Or will I breathe? Will I pause? Will I remember my training? Will I see the obstacle as a test instead of a tragedy? Will I use it to prove what I'm made of instead of using it as an excuse to fall apart? Decide now, before the pressure hits, because in the heat of the moment, you won't rise to the occasion, you'll fall to your preparation, and if you haven't prepared your mind for adversity, you'll be swept away by it. This question also teaches you resilience, real resilience, not the kind that comes from avoiding hard things, the kind that comes from walking through them and realizing you survived, that you're still here, that you're stronger than you thought. Every time you respond well to something going wrong, you build trust with yourself. You prove that you can handle it, and that trust becomes unshakable confidence, not arrogance, just the quiet knowing that no matter what life throws at you, you'll figure it out. You always have, and you always will. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That reaction, it's not random, it's trained, and you train it every morning by asking this question, by visualizing the difficulty, by deciding in advance who you'll be, by refusing to let external chaos dictate your internal state. That's mastery, that's freedom, that's the life of a Stoic, not a life without problems, a life where problems don't control you anymore. Integration. These 5 questions aren't separate, they're a system, a morning practice that builds a foundation nothing can shake. You start by choosing your identity. You anchor to your one non-negotiable. You clarify what's in your control. You ground yourself in gratitude. And you prepare for adversity. That's the sequence. And when you run through it every morning, when it becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth, something extraordinary happens. You stop living reactively. You stop being a passenger in your own life. You become the driver, the author, the architect. The Stoics didn't have perfect lives. They had the same struggles you do, maybe worse. But they had something most people don't. A practice, a system, a way of preparing their minds before the world could assault them. And that practice made all the difference. It didn't eliminate hardship. It made them capable of enduring it, of learning from it, of using it to become something more. You can have that too, not someday, today, right now, by asking these 5 questions every morning, not once and forgetting about them, every single morning, until they become part of you, until you can't start your day without them, until your mind is so trained that even when life hits you with everything it has, you don't break, you bend, you adapt, you rise. Call to reflect. So tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, before you check the news or scroll through chaos, ask yourself these five questions. Write them down if you need to. Say them out loud, whatever it takes to make them real. Because these aren't just questions, they're tools, weapons, keys to a life most people never find because they're too busy reacting to ever get ahead of the day. Who am I choosing to be today? What's my one non-negotiable? What's actually in my control? What am I grateful for right now? How will I respond when things don't go my way? 5 questions, 5 minutes, 1 transformed life. The world needs more men who don't just survive the day, who don't just react, who don't just drift. It needs men who lead themselves first, who build from the inside out, who understand that the morning isn't just time before work. It's the foundation for everything that follows. You have that power. You've always had it. You just have to use it. Stay focused, stay grounded, and remember, the quiet work you do today is shaping the strength they'll never see coming.